Hello, everybody. My name is Memo. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, as I just said, and today I've got with me my co-host, Hoops.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back for our second episode. As mentioned by Memo, we are gonna break down pretty much the biggest headlines of the week, from the standings to the notable teams, impressive, disappointing, and league-wide news, as well as our personal standing predictions for the upcoming season. So should be fun.
Yeah, just a few things before we start. First of all, how are you doing? How was your week?
I've been doing okay, pretty average, I will say. Um, I would say went by faster than the previous week. Still out here in China on the business trip. It's been okay.
Do you want to tell everybody what day
Always
slash time
exhausted.
it is for you right now?
It is Sunday, 4:15 p.m. right now.
Yeah, and for me, it
So
is
for you,
Sunday, October 29th, 2023 at 1:16 a.m. So it's, I guess, pretty late for me.
find it different.
But we gotta get this
Yeah,
done. We gotta grind this out, dude.
yeah, definitely. It's been very tricky picking up a time that would work for both of us. And I know this is not the most ideal since it's like pretty late for you, but um it's the weekend, so we had to get it done because weekdays are too hard for us to both pick a time that's available.
Yeah, you being in China does not help because obviously, the time
It doesn't, man.
difference sucks, but also the technology issues. Like, as you can see, it's just me on the screen, right?
Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, it's just me on the screen. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with uh, your video. Uh,
Yeah,
it's
I
like a
have no
mystery.
idea. It was working fine last week, and out of nowhere it says that the settings are messed up now.
But hopefully, when you're back, which when will you be back? Like mid November.
Like mid mid slightly past mid, maybe like around November 20th, I probably, but it's not official yet. Um, but by the time I get back, I'm hopeful that all of the tech issues could at least be fixed.
Yeah, it should be hopefully. My week
Yeah.
has been.
But another, oh,
Uh,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna mention my week really quickly. How it's been pretty cool. I'm glad that basketball is back. I've been uh, watching a few of the games, keeping up with certain teams and news and stuff like that. This week, I also went to a concert. I talked to you about it a little bit. If you weren't in China right now, we probably would have gone together, but I ended up going alone, which is,
Man, I wish I could have went with you, but
yeah,
it's all good.
uh,
We'll figure that out later.
yeah. I went to see Group Therapy and Toby Lou recently, and they were pretty cool. I mostly went for Group Therapy, even though they were the openers. Highly recommend their new album. But Toby Lou is
Take
also
a look.
awesome as well. He's been killing it for years. And yeah, the show was cool. And there was actually this cool moment where we were just the audience was just watching music videos on like a giant screen, waiting for Toby, and that out of nowhere we noticed that right behind us in the crowd it was Toby Lou. He was watching us from behind this whole time, and he ended up walking through the entire crowd, like parting the audience like he was Moses parting the seas. And he was wearing all white. The spotlight was on him, so he looked very angelic. It was pretty cool how he was like with us for like the beginning of the show. It was cool.
That sounds lit.
Yeah,
Um,
it was pretty cool.
yeah. And it's good you've been able to watch some games as well. Unfortunately, over here, due to the time difference, I haven't really been able to watch any NBA games yet this first week, which is definitely a bit frustrating. Um, During the weekends, I would have more of an opportunity to watch if I wanted to, if I get up early enough. For example, if it's a West Coast game, like a Friday night Lakers game at 7:30 that ends at 10 p.m. For me over here, if I get up at 10:30, it will end at 1, which is very doable. But on Fridays, it's kind of tricky. Actually, I totally forgot actually if a Friday game there would actually be a Saturday here, so it's very doable if I'm not doing my other things outside. However, while I am here, I kind of try to explore during the weekends. So I haven't been having a lot of chances to like watch the actual games. But hopefully, if I can, like next weekend or something, maybe I can try to at least watch tidbits or like at least try to catch the endings of crunch time situations. But overall, though, I have at least been like checking the box scores and like the standings and stuff to keep up. So, um, definitely still knowing what's going on around the league, just not being able to observe as much as I like actually watching. But we will get it done and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like, you're obviously in a different country. It's gonna be hard to check out these games. So I think that's fair, and
Hmm.
especially like you gotta live your life as well. Like exploring during the weekend in a different country, I feel like that is a perfect excuse why you haven't been watching the games, and you've at least like been checking box scores, highlights, stuff like that. So I think that's all fair. I
Yeah.
think that's fair.
Hmm.
You went over the
For sure.
agenda already, but just
Yeah.
a brief reminder. We're gonna
Yeah.
start off by quickly going over the standings. Then we're gonna talk about some uh, notable games, notable players. We're gonna talk about who impressed us, who's disappointed us. After that, we'll check. We'll cover some news that happened between like the last 2 weeks. Like some of the news here are old. Uh, we're definitely gonna talk about at least a little bit about the new city jerseys. I was thinking maybe next week we could do like a tier list on the city jerseys. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah. That'll be a good idea.
And then the last thing we're gonna
Would be-
do is rank the Western and Eastern Conference. We both have our own rankings, so I think that'd be fun. I did my ranking before the season started, and I already regret some of my decisions, but um, I'm gonna own up to it, and I'm just gonna go with it. And speaking of regret, we talked about our predictions for awards last week. Do you have? Do you already have some regrets on any of your decisions, or are you like confident about some of your decisions from last week?
To be honest, I haven't really thought too much about the regret stuff. Um,
I've got one.
the only the only one I could really think of, though I wouldn't really say it's that big of a regret because it was a bold take, and bold take is like not supposed to be likely in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I said Darko Rajakovic being the dark horse which of the year if the Raptors could surprise some people,
That wasn't your
which
final
who
pick,
knows?
wasn't it?
Uh, that was not my final pick. That was my dark horse. Um, but what I was saying was it's still possible they could surprise people. I mean, it's literally only been 2, 3 games into the season, but I don't think it's likely. I just went with it because, like, why not? We got to make it fun by having a dark horse pick. So
Yeah, yeah,
I just decided to mention him. And I thought that that team clearly has the talent because they've proven they could win before. Even losing Fred VanVleet, I thought that they had a chance to still potentially have the potential to shock people. And it's still possible, but I don't think it's likely. But aside from that, I don't really have any serious regrets for predictions right now. I think it's too early for that.
Yeah, it's definitely way
But
too
yeah,
early,
what was your
but
predict?
I have
I
a
mean, what was your regret?
I have a few regrets. A couple, a couple. First, Austin Reeves
Okay.
being most improved player. He's just playing how he has been last season, but obviously it's been like 2 games. There's gonna be a
Yeah.
lot, 80 more games for him to prove that he's improved. And then Quinn Snyder as a coach of the year. I believe if we go to the standings, the Hawks are winless, probably, maybe. Yeah, they're winless right now,
I,
and their stars aren't playing that well. Uh, he might not win Coach of the Year, but again, super early to predict.
yeah.
But
And it's
yeah,
possible.
it's
And
still possible.
and as mentioned earlier, yeah. And as mentioned earlier, like if the team starts the year bad and then they turn the season around, that's very high potential to being like a award for like coach of the year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. But right now, let's go through the standings. For the people watching on YouTube, I'll have the standings up on the screen. It's just the NBA website. I'll go over the Eastern Conference. You'll go over the Western Conference for the audio listeners. But yeah, I'll start off with Eastern Conference. The two teams that are winless with a 0-2 record is the 15th seed Hawks and the 14th seed Nets. The following teams have a 1-2 record, which is 13th seed Raptors, 12th seed Cavs, 11th seed Knicks, 10th seed Heat, and the 9th seed Bulls, which I really want to talk about later on. They kind of suck right now, even if they do have a win. They kind of suck. The
Yeah.
following teams have a 1-1 record, and that is the Wizards, Hornets, 76ers, the Pistons, and the Wizards are 8th seed, Hornets 7th seed, 76ers 6th seed. The 5th seed is the Pistons with a 2-1 record. The 4th seed is the Bucks with a 1-0 record, and the following teams have a 2-0 record. They haven't lost, and it is the 3rd seed Magic, the 2nd seed Celtics, and the 1st seed Pacers. All right, now you can do the Western Conference.
So Western Conference standings, starting at the very bottom, is the Memphis Grizzlies at 0-3, which is the worst record overall in the entire league. Next up we have the Rockets and the Trailblazers, both at 0-2. Um, Slightly above them is the Utah Jazz at 1-2. And then we have several teams tied at 1-1. And that would be the Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, LA Clippers, Minnesota Timberwolves, Los Angeles Lakers, and Golden State Warriors. At the 5th seed, we have the Phoenix Suns standing alone at 2-1. And then 1-4, the undefeated teams in the Western Conference we have are the Oklahoma City Thunder, Denver Nuggets, New Orleans Pelicans, and the Dallas Mavericks.
So yeah, those are the standings. Although it's not super important right now, since it's literally been less than a week since the NBA has started. I think as time continues, uh, it will be more important, especially during like the second half of the year. And I feel like having an
For
update
sure.
weekly would be nice. So I think we should keep it weekly. But let's go over some
Yeah.
of the games, some of the teams, some of the player highlights from this week. And I want to talk about a few teams. Let's start off with the Lakers since we are both huge Lakers fans. They have, you said a 1-1 record, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I believe I watched both games this week. They lost to the Nuggets but they were able to beat the Suns even though they didn't have Devin Booker or Bradley Beal. Do you have any thoughts about the Lakers?
Yeah. So I would say that in general, the thoughts is first game didn't look very great. Um, they took the lead early against Denver, but then afterwards pretty much lost control and Denver dominated us throughout. And I know that LeBron per usual played good because that's how he is. He had a little bit of the in-game load management, and unfortunately, the Lakers just didn't do very good when he was off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
AD had a pretty good first half, but second half he just totally disappeared and didn't score at all. Am I right?
Yeah, I was so happy after the first half because seeing Jokic and AD going at it was fun to watch. And they both I
Yeah.
think Jokic had like 19 in the first half and then AD had 17 with like one rebound. So I was hoping he'd rebound more, but I didn't expect him to go scoreless in the second half.
Yeah. That was totally disappointing how one half he looked great and the other one he just didn't look existent at all. But I will say from that game, one of the players that really did impress, kind of out of nowhere, was Torian Prince.
Yeah, I agree.
18 points. Yeah. I mean, he scored 18 points, shot 6 of 8 from the field, and 4 of 6 from 3-point range. That was really huge for the Lakers to like at least hang in the game for a little bit, even though ultimately we did lose that game by 12.
But at least we
And
bounced back
then,
against Phoenix, right?
yeah, and I was actually just about to transition to that game. That game was more of the opposite from the Denver game, really. We started the game not very good, and we were down by 12 in the first quarter, and then Lakers stormed back in the second quarter to pull it was in 4 at halftime, and then don't have a very good third quarter. The Suns ended up going back up by 12, and then fourth quarter was when the Lakers were able to really get their A game up to
Especially
bounce
LeBron,
back.
right?
And yep, um, they were able to bounce back, outscore the Suns 28-11, which was very huge in getting that win.
Mm-hmm.
And also, AD had a monster game too, scoring 30 points that game. Um, and he shot pretty well from the field, 10 of 17. Uh, he also had 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. So a pretty solid performance by AD that game, especially after seeing how non-existent he went in the second half of the Denver game. I think that was a good bounce back. Um, and I know a lot of the people are gonna say, "Oh, you guys barely beat the Suns without Devin Booker and Bradley Beal." And even if that is true, I mean, they overcame that adversity come from down 12 points at the start of the fourth quarter and came back and got the win. So, gotta give credit where it's due. I'm glad we were able to win the second game. Hopefully, more of similar coming up soon. But what were your thoughts on the first two games for the Lakers?
Yeah. Oh well, the first game was definitely very disappointing. It makes me feel like the Lakers might not have a chance to make the finals if they have to face the Nuggets, because the Nuggets they they're so good. Jokic is insanely good. He
Yeah.
uh we could like talk about the Nuggets a bit now if you want, but the Nuggets, their defense is insane. They are always switching and rotating and uh, closing out shots. Jokic casually gets a triple double, a 30-point triple double in the first game. He just is orchestrating everything. He's doing little. He's helping the team little by little, and then at the end, even though it shouldn't be shocking, you're kind of shocked that he has a 30-point triple double at the end, because it's not like he had one giant moment where he is dominating. He just slowly dominates throughout the entire game. The Lakers, back to the Lakers though. The time restriction for LeBron makes sense. It definitely does because he's getting older. But Darvin Ham should be playing him in the fourth if it's a close game. He because we need him, and that's kind of what he did against when the Lakers were against the Suns. They needed LeBron. LeBron played in the fourth, and he kind of carried in that fourth quarter. He came through in the clutch for that game and helped the Lakers get the win. And
Definitely couldn't have won without his heroics that game.
yeah, yeah, and he, although it's LeBron, he's not Superman. He's getting older. His game isn't like what he used to. He scored most of it, or I want to say most of his points through like just bullying transition, like running through the defense. He wasn't really making a bunch of jump shots or anything. He wasn't posting up. I felt like most of his shots were just running through the defense and scoring like that. So, yeah, he's not the LeBron of old. That's why Anthony Davis truly does need to step up. He didn't in the first game, but he has moments where he can prove that he is the best Laker on the team. He just needs to do that for an entire season and can't be scoreless in another half like he did with the Nuggets.
Right. Most importantly, though, stay healthy.
Of course, yes, yeah. Okay, so that's the Lakers. The Nuggets, I mean, I was gonna talk about them a little more during like the impressive segment. So we don't have to talk about them a lot now. We could talk about who should we talk about? Maybe
we can talk about how about we stay out west and we can talk about the Suns.
All right, let's talk about the Suns. Their first game was against who again?
The Warriors.
The Warriors, yeah. They beat the
And
Warriors.
they won. Mm-hmm.
The Warriors are, except for a few players, the Warriors are washed. They need Steph to carry. That's the only way they were able to beat the Kings. The Kings lost to a buzzer beater from Stephen Curry. Chris Paul has been all right. He's averaging basically a 10 and 10. So, but do you like the fit with Chris Paul as a Warrior?
It's a really weird fit, not going to lie there. And it's still weird seeing him in that jersey. Like all those years of Steph and Chris Paul's battles against each other, and now they're on the same team. Definitely really weird to adapt to, but I don't necessarily like the fit though, and part of it is probably due to the fact that I don't really like Chris Paul as a player and don't like the Warriors as a team. But I just feel like it just seems a little bit of a weird fit because like they're both primarily point guards. Even though Steph, if he wants to. Did my voice get cut off?
No, you're fine.
Okay. But I think that it's just a very weird fit, so I don't like it that much.
Yeah.
You have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'll go over this more during our standings prediction, but I do think this is the start of the Warriors' downfall ever since the Lakers beat them in the playoffs. I think they're just going to go downhill from here. To be fair to the Warriors, they don't have Draymond Green right now, which offensively he's like a liability, but defensively he is very important. But speaking of
Yep.
offensive liability, Klay Thompson washed. He is
Man.
he sucks. He's washed. He can't play defense anymore. And then offensively, he's considered one of the greatest shooters of all time, but currently he's shooting 33% from 3. He's scoring 16.5 points. It's only been 2 games. It's probably going to improve. But I don't see him being able to score 22 points, 20 points a night anymore. And I don't see him playing great defense anymore as well. So, yeah, the Warriors, I it's not looking good for them. I don't At least I don't think so.
I agree. This team, I think, is going to go through a very big roller coaster, if anything. And
Last season
I
was a
see.
roller coaster for them in a way. They couldn't win a single road game, which sucked for them.
Um, I think that at best they will be a playing team this season,
Ooh.
and they probably should have been a playing team last season. But this season, I think that the play-in is literally their peak, if they even make the playoffs.
Yeah, I haven't looked over your
Um,
standing predictions, so I'm actually a little surprised you said that, but that's a that's an interesting take. I kind of can't wait to see your predictions. Is there anything
yeah.
else you want to say about the Warriors, or should we move on to another team that's less depressing, maybe?
Um, let's see. I don't really have much else to say about the Warriors, except I see them being a very inconsistent team this year.
Yeah, I can see that. Let's stay in like the positive realm as for now, and maybe talk about the Bucks. They've only played one game, but based off that one
Yeah.
game, I felt like a lot of my thoughts on the Bucks is true. I feel like the duo with Dame and Giannis is an amazing duo, and they complement each other a lot. Giannis can control the entire game offensively, defensively, but when it came to the fourth quarter, it was truly Dame time. Who did they face again? Do you remember? Let me look it up. Bucks game. It was a kind of a close game, if I
It was. They
remember.
won by 1 point.
Against who? Do you remember?
The Sixers,
The Sixers.
which
Right, right,
you
right,
could
right.
argue, yeah, you could argue that maybe they should have won by more, but a win is a win.
Yeah, a win is a win. Damian Lillard actually like came through, had some clutch moments. If I remember correctly, I think I named him as my clutch player of the year for this season. I could be
I think
wrong,
so too.
but I think that's who I picked. And if
Hey, good,
if
good.
that is who I picked, I am looking pretty good so far because Damian Lillard did kill it that game, especially in the fourth quarter. He had how many points did he have? Like 41 points in total.
Um, I forgot honestly.
Let me look it up really quickly. He had 39 points in his debut,
Okay,
which
close
is
enough.
insane. I will ask you this
Yeah,
though
good start.
about Damian Lillard and Giannis. Giannis just recently said that the Bucks is Dame's team, even though Giannis is in his prime. Damian Lillard is not is still insanely good, but he's aging. Do you agree with Giannis as he said he believes that Damian Lillard is the guy for the Bucks, or do you think it's still Giannis's team?
So it's definitely a very interesting take, but I think that who knows, maybe Giannis just said that to try to give his new teammate some praise. which is good for sure. I mean, you want to make your new teammate happy, but it's possible that could be true. But at the end of the day, I think that it's definitely gotta still be Giannis running the table, especially because he's been with the Bucks for a long time and Dame just got here. So I don't necessarily think that it is Dame's team now, but I guess it could be like a 1A, 1B situation. So overall, I think still Giannis running the entire.
Yeah, it's definitely Giannis's team. I do agree. I think he was just trying to be nice and welcoming to Damian Lillard, but uh, yeah, it's clearly
Yeah,
Giannis's team. Let's stick with
definitely.
some good teams.
But let's not forget about.
Go-
I was gonna say, let's not forget about Chris Middleton. He's still on that team, and he's a pretty good number three option.
oh yeah, Chris Middleton is great. Brooke Lopez, I love Brooke Lopez. He
Yeah,
killed it. He
he's
had some
good.
great timely 3 pointers in that game. I thought he was robbed for Defensive Player of the Year last year. I'm a big fan of his, so I'm glad that he's still killing it for the Bucks. But let's continue
For
on
sure.
the good teams and talk about the Celtics, which, you know, as Lakers fans, we want the worst for the Celtics. We don't want them to succeed, but they're undefeated right now.
Definitely.
They're killing it right now, and the addition of Kristaps Porzingis has already proven that it was a wonderful pickup or trade because in his debut he scored 30 points, made 5 3 pointers, 8 rebounds, and 4 blocks. The following game he had 17. He cooled down a little bit, but still he's been doing really good. What has been your thoughts on uh, the Celtics or any of the players?
There's really not much for me to say except for the fact that they did not take a step back from last season. Pretty, they had a few big moves to try to improve their team.
Like Drew Holiday?
At the end of the day, yeah, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously they did lose some guys like Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon. But overall, it's inevitable that the moves they made were obviously upgrades. And I know for sure everyone predicted Boston to be at the top of the conference. I mean, I'm pretty sure the majority predicted Boston battling 1A, 1B, and it's looking like it will be that way. Um, so overall for Boston, all I can say is really good.
Yeah,
I
they're.
don't like it, but it is a reality. So I think they're definitely going to be battling with Milwaukee at the end of the day, barring injury, always barring injury, because injuries
Mhm.
could derail a team's season in the flash of an eye. But assuming that everyone is healthy, it will ultimately come down to those two teams at the end for the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Kristaps Porzingis definitely had a more explosive debut for the Celtics, but Drew Holiday uh, has not been a slouch. He's been playing defense. He's been creating for the team, which is something they really needed last year. They had Marcus Smart as their main distributor, which that's not really his game, but it's Drew's game. And um his last game he had 7 assists, he had 17 points, he had a block, so he's doing the little things. He's scoring when he needs to. He's playing defense. He is rebounding. He had 10 rebounds that game. He is playmaking, and yeah, I agree with you. The Bucks and Celtics are gonna be 1A and 1B. It's hard to predict who will be the best team in the East. I that's a difficult task, but yeah, they're unfortunately impressive. So I think those are all the impressive teams that I wanted to really like talk about. Of course, there's other teams that like are doing great, like the Orlando Magic, who are undefeated. But it's the Orlando Magic. Do we really want to talk about them, especially since they won against trash teams? Like, should we talk about them?
I would not say there's much to talk about for that team.
Exactly.
I mean, credit where it's due. They did win both their games, and they are 2-0. It's better than losing those games.
Uh huh.
But at the end of the day, they did beat two of the worst teams in the league, the Rockets and the Trailblazers. So I think that their 2-0 record is not really a sign of what's to come. Um, they will face reality as soon as they play the real teams, but um, credit to them for at least winning the games they should win. I think that they should be pretty fun to watch, though, knowing that they're a young team now.
Oh yeah, Franz and Paulo. There could be a fun team to watch with those players.
But at the end of the day, this team does look like they have a promising future. So if they keep things up, I would not be shocked if they put themselves in position for the play-in tournament. But probably I don't see them going far, even if they do make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But probably I think that they need another year or two to get there.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to players that have been impressive. There's a handful of them that I want to go over. If there's players you want to mention, feel free to mention them. I think we'll start off with like the biggest name, which is Luka. Luka has led his team to be undefeated so far. Again, it's been like 2 games, and they were close games, right?
Yeah, they were close games against mediocre to bad teams. Um, but once again, credit to them for finishing.
But mostly credit to Luka, I think. That's
Yeah.
he nearly had a 50-point triple double. Like yesterday or a couple of days ago, and had like an insane 3-point like hook shot, that I think won them the game. Was it, or at least one of the like closing shots or whatever? Luka's killing it right now. His scoring is insane at the moment. Where since it's only been like 2 games, he's like currently averaging like 40 points. That's a that's an insane big number. So he's definitely been impressive. Another player I think has been impressive. The following 2 players I think have been impressive. Based off of like their hustle, they're doing the little things, has been Josh Okogie and Alex Caruso. I think even though their stats aren't crazy, they're doing all the little things. If you actually watch the games, they're playing defense. They're making the right moves. They're making the right passes, scoring timely shots. Alex Caruso just hit a game winner recently to get the Bulls that 1 win. So I think they're both killing it in their respective roles. When it comes to Cam Thomas has been doing really well. His last 2 games have been insane. Yeah, I have them right here. Both he scored 36 points in one of them, 30 points in the other. Good efficiency. He's right rebounding. He's definitely a player to watch for the Nets. And then Jalen Duren has been killing it as well. Yeah, I have the stats here. He scored on one night 23 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, with 82% field goal. He scored 14 points, 17 rebounds, 2 blocks, 87% field goal percentage. 17 points, 14 rebounds, 4 blocks, 72% field goal percentage. He's killing it at Detroit. The Pistons suck, but he doesn't. That's for sure. I kind of said a lot just right now. Uh, do you have any thoughts on any specific player or any of the players I just talked about?
Luka Magic. Really nothing different than what we expect from him. We know how great of a player he is. So, like, it's almost like we take his talents for granted now, just like a lot of other players that are really great in the league. Um, but man, he has been on a tear the first two games and really carrying that team to their first two wins because they were really close games. And without him, maybe they wouldn't have even been close if we're being honest, because that supporting cast really ain't it overall. I mean, they do have Kyrie as his mate, but we'll see how that goes. But overall, Luka has been on a tear as we expected. Josh Okogie has been the defensive core for the Suns. And like last year, for example, after the trade deadline for KD, getting rid of the key guys like Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, and whatnot, they lost a lot of their defensive presence. And Josh Okogie was one of the few guys that actually still had defense for that team. And this season, he's proven to be nothing but the same. Um, Now, Alex Caruso, we know how good of a hustle guy he is, dating back to the days when he was on the Lakers.
Yup.
Um, but man, that's the GOAT right there.
Yeah.
The bald mamba.
The bald mamba.
Yeah.
The only bright
Yeah.
spot for
Or
the
the bald
Bulls.
eagle.
The bald eagle. I
Yeah,
haven't heard that
really.
one.
Yeah. But he has been very big for that team. And he really is the reason why they won that one game they won. Because aside from that, the Bulls just really haven't been looking that good. Um, as far as Wemby goes, we all expected him to be really good. So I guess we're not too shocked. But at the same time, what he did was like almost like a historical debut, right? Like I think I saw they were comparing his first career game to Tim Duncan's career game.
And it was like
So that's
identical.
yeah. So that's not a bad comparison at all, especially if he could end up having a similar career to Tim Duncan, that would be really great. Now, of course, Tim Duncan did win 5 championships, so that will be a tall task
Oh yeah.
for him to match. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Cam Thomas, we do remember last year he had a very impressive stretch in the middle of the year and then kind of went out of nowhere towards the end, like disappeared. But it's good to see him putting up big numbers again this year because he was pretty fun to watch, especially when he put up like 35 points and 40-point performances. Cool stuff. And I've been hearing about Derek Lively, been going on a tear too.
Yeah, he had a good
I haven't been
debut.
able to, yeah, I haven't been able to observe his play too much, but I did hear that he impressed very well.
Yeah, at least in his
And then,
debut game, like he got a double double in his debut. He got 16 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 block, 1 steal. He did pretty well. The second game he did okay, not as good, 9 points, 2 rebounds. But I just wanted to shout him out based off that pretty good first game. And again, it's just a couple games into the season, so we'll see what happens with him.
yeah,
But I'm rooting for him. I want to root for all the rookies. I like how you mentioned
definitely.
Wemby. Wemby has had a pretty good start. Chet, uh, although I shouldn't be surprised, he has impressed me. Especially, I think he broke the record for most blocks by a rookie already, in a single game, which was 7. He was able to get that the other day, so he's gonna.
That was
Um,
insane.
what was that?
I said that was insane for sure.
Yeah. So he's definitely gonna be a force to be reckoned with for OKC. So yeah, and anything else you want to say that has impressed you before we go and talk about some of the more disappointing teams and players?
I feel like for the most part, we kind of covered most of it. I will say that the Pistons 2-1 record is kind of shocking, but I didn't really like observe who exactly they played or stuff like that. So
Yeah, I haven't been
I
paying
feel like
attention to them, but I know Cade Cunningham. Yeah, he's been doing pretty well. His last game, he got a double double, 25 points, 10 assists. His first game, almost a
yeah,
double double, 30 points, 9 assists. Second game, not that great, but he's doing well. Uh, Hopefully he keeps improving and makes the Detroit Pistons watchable again.
yeah. I mean, potential most improved player of the year candidate,
Oh yeah, you
right?
said that last week. Yeah.
So what happens if he keeps it up? It's possible. Um, Aside from that, I wouldn't say I have too many other shocks at the moment. It is really early in the season, so I'll give these teams more time to adjust
Right.
before I make any further observations.
Right. But yeah, I think that's it for being very positive. Now let's be complete haters and talk about some of the more disappointing teams slash players. And I guess we could start with teams. And I want to start with Hawks, which I kind of briefly talked about already. They're 0-2 right now. I was kind of rooting for them because, I trust Quinn Snyder. I believe that Trey Young was going to have a bounce back year. So will uh, Murray, but they're kind of like the same as last year. They're not really, especially the stars haven't been really killing it. So they're 0-2 right now. Do you have any thoughts on the Hawks at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched their games and I haven't observed too much, but from what I saw, they're definitely not looking that good the first two games. I mean, the first loss was against the Hornets, who were expected to be one of the worst teams in the league, and they probably still will be. Um, then the second game, they lost against the Knicks, which I guess isn't as bad. The Knicks for sure should be a playoff team at least.
They're not having a good
But
start either, though.
yeah, but I was expecting the Hawks to like at least be better than last season, maybe, because last season they were disappointing. Um, but we'll see. There's time, but the first two games they haven't really been looking very great. Um, for the most part, really the main things I have to say about the Hawks that they have been disappointing, but hopefully they have time to. I mean, they do have time. I was gonna say, hopefully they can turn their season around throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, hopefully. And
I am
although,
rooting for them at the end of the game.
can you repeat that, please? I cut you off.
Yeah. I am rooting for their success at the end of the day because I do like Trey and I do like DeJounte Murray. So hopefully they could get better.
Yeah, hopefully. And although the Hawks and some other teams are still winless, I feel like the biggest loser for this week, in regards to teams, are the Bulls. I they're they're awful. They really are. After the first game, after their first loss, they already had a player only meeting, which is not a great sign after your first loss. And in their second game, they did win, but it took Caruso carrying their team basically, playing defense, and of course making that game winning 3-pointer for that was like the only way they were able to win that game. And then just today or last night or I guess, uh Zach LaVine got a career high, I believe, 51 points, zero assists, still lose. They still lost. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's not looking good for the Bulls right now. They really suck. Any thoughts on them?
Yeah, man. I don't really have much to say except for the fact that they don't look very good. It's disappointing because that team has talent. Zach LaVine, still have DeMar DeRozan. Um, Obviously, Lonzo's injured. That one's unfortunate. Um, and then they still have Nikola Vucevic. Um, some decent core guys, honestly, on paper. So you would expect them to be better, but unfortunately, it's just not looking like it right now. And I don't think they're gonna go very far. If they even like, they'll probably be at this rate one of the top teams in the lottery, which is disappointing because 2 years ago they were looking pretty good. They were even at the top of the East for a little
Yeah,
bit in 21, 22. And then last year, unexpectedly, they completely missed the playoffs. And this year, it's looking like they're for sure going to miss the playoffs again. It's disappointing because I do like their team, but I don't think they're going to do very well. Probably a lottery team.
yeah, they probably won't do well. And I agree with you. Like, I do like a lot of the players on the team, but they kind of suck. Um, but yeah, those are the main two disappointing teams I wanted to mention. I don't know if you had any other teams you want to talk about.
I mean, we briefly mentioned them earlier, but Memphis being the worst team
All
record
right,
wise
right, right.
now, 0-3. Um, I guess that one is definitely a little bit of a shock, especially because like 2 seasons ago, without John Morant, the Grizzlies had a really good record without him, which was which was definitely a little bit shocking because he was like obviously so important to that team. But this season's to start hasn't been it. Now, they did play Denver shockingly really close and only lose to them by 4 points. And what did they do as soon as somewhat showing like a little bit of life there? The next night, they get pretty much destroyed by Washington, which is not one of the worst teams in the league, too, I would say.
It's embarrassing.
Though they do have, yeah, they do have young talent, but that is not a good look there. So I'm sure they're gonna get better when Ja does return, but they're definitely gonna take a step back. If they're lucky, mm, I can only see play-in tournament at best, but I don't know if they will or not. So we'll see. Um, I'm gonna try not to go too deep on my exact season predictions here because we're gonna go over our predicted standings later in the video. But I'm just gonna say that I think that for Memphis, it's not looking good right now, and I don't know how much better things will get, even when Ja gets back. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Grizzlies. I almost forgot, but they have had a rough start. They definitely miss Ja. They miss Steven Adams, who is gone with a season-ending knee in surgery. He got a knee injury last season, which made him basically miss the rest of last season, and now he's gonna miss the entirety of this season because of the knee surgery. So they missed those two players for sure, but they also probably missed Tyus Jones because the a big reason
Oh,
why
for sure.
a big reason why the Grizzlies were able to do well without John Morant in the past was because Tyus Jones was their backup point guard. He just took control and continued the success for the Grizzlies. But now they're missing him. They got Marcus Smart as a facilitator, which, as I mentioned before, with the he wasn't that great as a facilitator with the Celtics. So now with the Grizzlies, it's not gonna be a pretty season for the Grizzlies. They're missing some key players. They did just recently sign Bismack Biyombo, which hopefully will help them, but I don't think they're gonna do that well. You know, I do think Desmond Bain is gonna have a great season this year. Make me even make the All Star game. We'll see. Jaren Jackson Jr. though, I'm not a fan of his. I feel like he's a little overrated, and even though he's 7 feet tall, he can't rebound. So that's not good. He should be able to rebound at his tall ass height, but he can't. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it
I mean,
was
seemed like Xavier Tillman did a better job of rebounding
yeah it.
playoff series.
Who isn't Brandon Clark also gone for the Grizzlies? I'm pretty sure he's
He might be.
injured. So yeah, it's not looking good for them, not at all. So I'm glad you did
I know.
mention them for the disappointing teams. Uh, I have a couple of disappointing players I want to mention. Not to bully this guy too much because he's still young. It's he's a rookie, so not gonna drag him. But Scoot Henderson has had a disappointing couple games, um, and he's basically has been pretty inefficient scoring wise. 11 points his debut, with 5 for 11 field goal, and second game 7 points, 3 of 12. It was very poor shooting from Scoot. But he is young though, right? He's young, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of time for him.
Yeah. And hopefully he does turn it around. I mean, like we've seen a good amount of rookies in the past not do very good in their first few games, and they are able to turn things around pretty quick later. So hopefully that could be the case for Scoot, but I think that learning curves is normal. So I think it should only go up from here, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and sometimes the opposite happens, where like a Michael Carter Williams situation happens, where didn't he almost have
Oh
like
man, I
a
forgot about that
quadruple
guy.
double in his first game and ended up being a bust? He did win Rookie of the Year that year, but still, he was pretty trash afterwards. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a couple
2000
games.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say 2013 draft class, man. Very wild because it was very lackluster.
It was.
Um that year it looked like without a debate that the best players were Victor Oladipo or maybe Michael Carter Williams. But then with time due, obviously now it's undebatable Giannis is the best one from that class.
Clearly, yeah.
Though coming Yeah, though coming out of the draft, it's understandable he wasn't looked that highly because he was really skinny back then out of Greece and he wasn't very well known either. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that draft class took a complete turn, like for the unexpected or maybe even the expected. See how you want to say it, but definitely a lot of turnover.
Right. So I just want to mention one more player during disappointing, and then we'll go over a few uh, headlines, few NBA news. But yeah, I feel like the biggest loser when it comes to players this week is James Harden, based off of like him not playing for the Sixers. You know, he's a very dramatic guy, and he once again is refusing to play and try his best for the organization he is playing for. And just recently, let me bring up This tweet is from Crispy Haynes. James Harden went to the airport to join the 76ers when they were going to go face the Bucks and was denied entry onto the team plane by a security official. The 76ers do not want to deal with James Harden right now. James Harden is a huge distraction. They claim that they didn't want him to join because they wanted him to stay in Philly. I'm sorry. They want him to stay in Philly to work on his own game and his own health at their own facilities, and they didn't want him to travel since they want him to stay in Philly to use those facilities. But I feel like that was their nice way of saying that they just don't want to deal with James Harden. And who would? Like, James Harden is a huge drama queen. He is not the 50-point walking triple double that he was when he was in Houston. He is a good point guard, but he is a shell of his former self at the moment.
I agree. Um, First of all, like I don't know if I necessarily agree with that news report that Chris Haynes made because as you mentioned, I feel like it's just a nice way of saying we don't want you with the team. There's no one to blame but himself for that. And it's sad. Like things were going really good for him. First, like being a part of that young core in OKC, ultimately earning him the trade to Houston and becoming the man there and pretty much running like he was putting up crazy stat lines and always in the MVP running. And then once he demanded the trade to the Nets, um, that team looked good when they were healthy. But as soon as things go downhill, he requests another trade and then gets traded to Philly. They look decent for a little bit, but then choke in the playoffs because that's what that team always does. And then now he wants to get traded again, which is very very wild to say the least. Um I would definitely not want him on my team just for the very reason that he's very independable. Kind of like a little bit of like Kyrie, where you don't know if you can expect him to be available like every day, whether it's gonna be an off-court issue or a personal issue.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that another thing is it could also be partially Philly too. I mean, a year ago they were going through something similar with Ben Simmons, and now they're going over the same thing with James Harden. So maybe it's something to do with the Philly front office also. But really, it's probably both Philly and Harden because both of them have had these weird situations numerous times in within the last year or two. So definitely James Harden is very worthy of being on the L list for this week. So hopefully he gets traded soon for Philly's sake. Rumors is that he'll probably get traded to the Clippers. Man, would that be a great fit? Because Harden always disappoints in the playoffs, and so do the Clippers. So
True,
joining
true.
forces makes sense. Low key, I would love to see it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think.
So moving on. Oh
Sorry,
yeah, you talk first. Sorry.
you could continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say if we were gonna move on to the next subject, but if you have more thoughts, you can continue, Harden.
No, we could move on. We could move on to some NBA news from this past week. That's probably not as juicy as the Chris Haynes report, but still some fun little topics that I want to talk about. Uh, the I want to do some Hall of Fame talk because there's some stories that I want to talk about and I want to relate it all around the Hall of Fame, starting with Andre Iguodala, who has officially retired from the NBA. Who had, although his stats aren't crazy, his personal stats, he's still had a very great career. He was an all star. He was all he was in all defensive teams. He of course won a Finals MVP with the Warriors, an NBA champion. So he's had a great career. Who also had a great career is Robert Horry. Uh, a journeyman, played for many teams. He won 7 championships, and uh, what got me the idea of talking about Hall of Fame is from this Shaq tweet, who claims Shaq claims that Robert Horry should be in the Hall of Fame, and uh, besides, there's other players as well that believe Robert Horry should be in the Hall of Fame, and another player that um, I want to mention is Jamal Crawford, because Kyrie Irving just talked about how Jamal Crawford should be in the Hall of Fame. So I want to bounce this question to you. Do you think any of these players should be in the Hall of Fame? And if it was just going to be one of these players, who do you think truly deserves to be in the Hall of Fame out of these three?
So, as far as the Hall of Fame goes, I think that it's a little bit tricky, especially knowing like the criteria to get in. Because usually Hall of Fame would be like the heavyweight slash superstars that either won a lot of championships or have had a lot of very crazy accolades. So it's a little bit more rare for like per se, let's say role players, for example. But I think that these players definitely all have a case to be in the Hall of Fame. Starting with Andre Iguodala, he has had a pretty good career. I know that his stats were not like crazy per se, but like dating back to his early career days when he was the number one guy in Philly, he proved that he was clearly capable of leading a team. So I think for sure there's a case that Andre Iguodala should potentially be in the running for the Hall of Fame. Um, as far as Robert Horry goes, he has definitely been very crucial to a lot of those championship teams, especially the fact that he's won 7, which is even more than Michael Jordan. Crazy stat there.
Yeah.
Um, and he's made a lot of big shots, hence his nickname, Big Shot Bob. Um, but I think that it's it's a little bit harder for me to say that he should be in the Hall of Fame because he was actually a role player. But then again, like was so illustrious that I can totally see Shaq's point. So maybe he has a slight argument. Personally, I just don't know if that would put him over the top. As far as Jamal Crawford goes, I think he definitely has an argument for sure. I mean, how many six man of the year did he win? Like 3 or 4,
Uh,
something like that.
Something like
That's
that. I
pretty
could look it
impressive.
up.
That's definitely very impressive. And
He won it
he
three
was a
times.
scoring 3 times, yeah. And yeah, I'm pretty sure he won. One was the Hawks and 2 was the Clippers. But yeah, man, he was a scoring machine, man. Instant offense. As soon as he goes on the floor, you knew that there was trouble coming because that guy could get hot instant. And he was really fun to watch.
Oh, he was. He was
Um,
one of my favorite players to watch.
yeah. Now, those Clipper years were very frustrating for me since I do not like Clippers, but I love Jamal Crawford. But his his last game on the Suns, which was not his last game overall, but his last like fair given opportunity was very insane. Remember the 50-point performance he put up,
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this.
which was also yeah, which was also Dirk Nowitzki's last game. Supposedly it's the spotlight for him, but then like Jamal Crawford kind of just stole the show, which is kind of sad for Dirk's case.
But that's what
But
he does.
that
He
was
always
really
steals the show.
exactly like that was really awesome to watch, especially because like Jamal was already like wasn't he like 38 or 39 already
Yeah,
that team? So like
he was old. I
almost
think
40.
the Suns like barely signed him for like the last few games of the season, and then he ended up scoring
Yeah,
50 on him. It was for them.
yeah. So that was pretty cool. Um, I'm still mad that the Lakers never signed him because we
Yeah,
were rumored to sign him so many times. Like, there were several occasions where the Lakers were rumored to sign Jamal Crawford, and they never did. Still bothers me because I know for a fact we could have used him, and especially for bench scoring. Like, for example, when LeBron was on the bench, a guy like Jamal Crawford would have been very big for keeping the offense going. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, but man, I think that Jamal Crawford for sure has a case for the Hall of Fame, especially for winning three Six Man of the Year. But at the end of the day, between these three players, I think that the player that deserves the biggest like case for being in the Hall of Fame will have to be Andre Iguodala.
I agree.
And here's why. He clearly showed how he was capable of being the number one guy early in his career in Philadelphia. Next, of course, he did win the Finals MVP, which was a very big accomplishment. Now, obviously, they think that Steph probably should have won instead, and that's arguable. But let's not take away the credit from Iggy for having such a great performance. I think that for sure he deserved to win the Finals MVP, and I'm happy he did get one. Um, but also, the man won four championships, which is pretty good. See, he did win a lot of them with the Warriors super teams, but not to take anything away from him, he played his role. And I think that the coolest thing about him was during those championship years, he took the sacrifice of coming off the bench when he was a starter his entire career.
Yeah,
That's what you want from team players. And Andre Iguodala did that without any hesitation. He wanted to do what was best for the team's success, best set them up for winning, and it clearly worked. So I think that Andre Iguodala is has a great case of making the Hall of Fame, and he has the best case out of these three players. So, any thoughts for you, Memo?
yeah. I don't have a lot of thoughts or things to add up. I think you said it perfectly. I like all three players. Um, you know, but out of the three, I think Andre Iguodala deserves it the most. Based off of the Finals MVP, the All Defensive team, the All Rookie team, him being a number one option at one point, the four championships, like Jamal Crawford and Robert Horry were never the number one option, um, and I think that helps his case, Andre's case, a lot. Just the last thing I want to say before we move on is that I wish Jamal Crawford was an all star because I felt like he's
Yeah,
has deserved it in
the
the
Ben.
past. Um, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say for that.
I agree. I feel like he should have had at least one All Star.
Yeah, he deserved it. Like Andre Iguodala was an all star. He ended up being an all star at least once. Why not
Yeah,
Jamal Crawford?
yeah, I know. He should have definitely been an All Star at least once, if not twice.
Yeah. Uh, some news that's a little more serious, I guess, is just load management. It's the start of the season, but players are already doing load management. Excuse me. Bradley Beal has been out due to an injury, but a lot of people have been saying that it's basically load management. But Jimmy Butler has straight up said, or like his team or the organization, whatever, has straight up said that he will be load managing the next game. So, what are your thoughts on load management this early into the season?
Yeah. As far as load management goes, I mean, I know no one likes it. I think that it definitely, if anything, slightly would damage the image of the league because players are sitting out games that maybe they could be playing if they really had to. But if it was like a serious injury, like fate for the long run, I could totally understand them sitting out. But I think it's more so when players are clearly capable to play, but they just choose not to because they, I guess, don't feel like playing that specific matchup, for example. That's when it's like a little bit frustrating. Like like obviously like the guy who illustrated load management, we all know was Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
Like so many games with like throughout his entire Clippers stint. I feel like he, in a way, got too comfortable coming back home. But, and I know that he does have like knee problems, but situations like that, it's just too much load managing. Now, I'm sure you heard about the new load management rule, right? The one where two superstars are not allowed to sit out in the same game, or else it's a fine, something like that.
yeah,
I think, yeah, I think that's a good start. Um, but like, we'll see how it goes because who knows? Maybe some teams low key would just be like, "F it, we're just gonna take the fine and sit these guys out anyway." Or maybe like teams could try to come up with some tricks, like they'll try to argue that this guy is too, his injury is too severe that he just can't physically play when really they probably maybe could play. So that could be a little bit of a concern there. But end of the day, I will say I don't like the load management, but certain situations, maybe it's valid that they do need to limit their play, or else things could get worse in the long run.
yeah, definitely. Of course, if you need to load manage, you should do it. It's for your own health, your well being. I just think it's a little silly that the NBA season just started and people are already load managing. But I'm not in the
Yeah.
NBA. I don't know what's should or should not be done. I'm just a very opinionated fan. But we can move on from that
Right.
and do one more piece of news that's a bit more fun, and I feel like we should talk about it more next week. And that is the city jerseys. The city jerseys are officially released for every single team. There's been leaks all summer, but they're now out now. So I was thinking that we could look at some of the jerseys now and pick our probably three favorite and three least favorite from each photo that I have in our Google Doc, and I will show the images on the screen for at least the YouTube viewers. For audio, I will just explain or talk about which teams are on the screen right now. Um, but yeah, let me show it off right now. And I currently have the photo with the Atlanta Hawks, Celtics, Nets, Hornets, Bulls, Cavs, Mavs, Nuggets, Pistons, Warriors, Rockets, Pacers, Clippers, Lakers, and Grizzlies jerseys on them. Those city jerseys. So let's try to stay positive, and if you can name three of your favorite jerseys from here, that would be great.
All right. Let's see. Um, I think that the Hornets Buzz City jersey looks cool overall. I think it's not much different than their regular Buzz like regular jerseys, but I do like the color scheme, just keeping it traditional. Um, the teal color I always thought looked good for the Hornets. So I think I will put the Hornets on one of the better ones on this list. Um, number two, I think I will go with maybe the Warriors, the San Francisco jerseys.
That's
Um,
a
I
surprising
do
pick, in
think
my
that some,
opinion.
yeah. Well, I will say a lot of these jerseys are not very good,
True,
so I
true.
kind of have to side the box a little bit. But I only say this because I am a fan of the when the Warriors write San Francisco instead of Golden State because I think it's like
Mm.
more specific to the actual city they play in, and I think it's a cool shout out to the city that they actually play in. Now I do think they've had some better San Francisco versions in the NBA 75 in 2021, 22, 2 years ago. That one was better. Um, the Warriors had a few gold jerseys to shout out San Francisco, which I also thought were better. Um, but overall, I think that one is not great, but it's not horrible. Um, and then number three, kind of challenging for me to pick a third one because I don't think most of them are really that good in general. But if I had to pick a number three, I think I might go with the Rockets H-Town jerseys. I'll start by saying I like the font, the cursive, kind of cool, and the jersey font. I mean, for the number is pretty average, but I like it, and I do think that it looks kind of like a Bulls jersey, but the Bulls and the Rockets do have similar colors. Overall, I think that's not a bad jersey. Um, so going on now, was the three worst from the picture. Um, I think that to start, I think that the Hawks jersey is way too simple, and it's almost like they didn't have much thought into it, to be honest.
The Times New
And like,
Roman ATO
yeah, yeah, and to like top all of that, it's in lowercase. Like, come on, man.
is
I feel like it
trash.
should have at least been capital. So yeah, I don't really like that jersey. Next up, that Memphis jersey, I think looks weird. Like, I respect the creativity. Like, it's like the parquet floor pattern type font, but I just don't like it. I think that it looks weird. And obviously, I know what they mean to write because Memphis. But I could totally tell like some random person who doesn't follow basketball or sports in general would be really confused. What does that say? So yeah, Memphis, not a very good city jersey. And then the third worst I would have to go with would probably be, I would say the Clippers. I don't like that font, honestly. And I think that the the number and the letters of the text for Clippers just don't really blend very well. They look completely different.
They are different. It's
And I
so
know
weird.
like yeah, and I know that maybe some of the other jerseys have a similar trend where it's completely different, but I just think that this one I don't like the color either, like the font. So I gotta put the Clippers on the list for the worst jerseys also on this first picture. So, Memo, what are your top three and worst three from this list?
Yeah, this is definitely very tough. This is a horrible crop of jerseys. I agree with your Hornets pick. Um, I like it. It's nothing crazy. Uh, I I think they have one of the best color schemes in general. So that blue or teal jersey, I like it. I like the color, so I'll choose that one as one of my favorites. Probably my most controversial opinion, because I know a lot of people hate this jersey, is the Cos Nets one. I do like Cos. I like the Cos art, so I do actually enjoy this jersey. Now I kind of wish it didn't have that red. I think it throws it off a bit, but I like the other than the red, I like the color scheme. I like the jumbled up letters, even though I've heard a lot of people complain about that. I think it's cool. I truly do. And then the third one, I'm having a hard time choosing. Uh, I could go with Houston, but I feel like it's a little boring. Same with the Mavs. Uh, and I like Boston's like cream color, but like I think the Bucks have done a cream jersey before that looked a lot better than this. Even though they look similar, I think
Yeah,
the Bucks did it
can't beat the
better.
original.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for my third good jersey, quote unquote good jersey, would be the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's giving Christmas, like Christmas PJs, but I like it, I
Yeah.
guess. I like the little royal design on like the the collars and stuff. So I'll go with that as part of the top three. Not very confident, but I guess that's what I'm gonna go with. For the worst jerseys, though, I'm surprised you did not say the Bulls, because that is one of the most atrocious things I've ever looked at in my life. My eyes are hurting looking at it. It's just a practice jersey that you'll find in like the clearest section at a Ross. It's awful. It does not say it does not that should not represent the Bulls. That should represent like a a child's league, well, a child's youth basketball league. It's awful. I don't want to look at it any longer. The Nuggets deserves better. They just won the championship. Now they have to have a bunch of letters on their jersey. Like what gives? I know it's supposed to represent like a mile high. They're in the mountains. Yippee! It's a lot of numbers. There's no point of having this many numbers. It's ugly. I hate the color scheme. Way too many numbers. Is this for a basketball team or like a math, like I don't even know what it's called, like
I was
debate.
I was gonna say it looks more like a marathon race jersey.
That's what a lot of people have been saying too. It's for like a marathon race. So yeah, too many numbers. It's basketball, not math class. And there's a lot of other options I could go with for the worst. Indiana is pretty bad. I don't like the splatter at the side, but the Clippers one is like, are you serious? Like clips, is this for
Yeah.
a basketball team or like a barber shop? Like what are we doing here? And that little basketball for the top of the eye is so corny and childish. It's not a good
Yeah.
look. So
I'm
those
not gonna
those are my
lie, from
three
a
least favorite.
distance, I can hardly even tell that's a basketball.
Yeah, it's a basketball. I didn't have a great image for you, but yeah, it's a basketball and it's not good.
Yeah,
Low key, the Lakers one is
yeah.
also
But at the
awful,
end of the day,
but I'm not gonna pick that one.
yeah. But at the end of the day, regardless it's a basketball or whatever, the end result is that it's a very bad jersey
It's
and for sure deserves to be
trash.
on the top three first. It
It's
is.
trash. Uh, but yeah, that Lakers jersey is by far their worst like black jersey. I know they were trying to do like a homage for like past jerseys back in the olden days where it's like black and white and there's like segregation going on, but yeah, Usually I like black jerseys. I usually love the Lakers black jerseys, but this is by far the worst Lakers black jersey, and that's all I have to say about this side. Should we move on?
Yeah, that was definitely a disappointing design. Yeah, we can move on. But I was gonna say one thing though. In regards to the Nets jersey that you mentioned on your top three list,
Oh yeah,
I do like the font for the Nets text, and I do like the jumbo letters actually. I'm just not necessarily a fan of all those colors going on in the background. That's it.
yeah.
Um,
That's kind of
I
his
think
thing,
that if
but
it could have been like,
I get that.
yeah, I think that if it could have been a solid gray or a solid blue with that text, it would be like a very cool jersey. But yeah, the red doesn't look good. So yeah, we can move on to the next section.
You're like the perfect person to talk about this topic because you know NBA jerseys very well, and you were in graphic design. So, uh, yeah, I'm glad I'm talking about this with you. That's for sure.
True stuff. I do like the interesting new looks. It's definitely cool to look at, even though these jerseys are not great.
Yeah, I feel like this next crop of jerseys though are better. I think they're better, but there's still some duds.
Definitely better.
I'll have you go first. Name your top three from this bunch and top three least favorite.
Okay, so I think that number one, I may have to go with the Utah Jazz city jerseys because that one looks practically not much different than their jerseys back in the day during the John Stockton and Karl Malone era. Very iconic. The purple jerseys was the mountains, and I like those jerseys a lot. I think it's cool that they're bringing them back in a similar fashion. So I think that's a really good jersey, and for that reason, I have to put that on one of the top three on this list. Second, I think that the Timberwolves jersey looks pretty cool. It looks kind of like as if it's like a glacier like setting or like maybe a forest in a way. Um, I like it. It's cool. Now, the font is kind of small, so I don't know if that's necessarily my favorite there. But overall, though, I like the creativity with the gradient they went. So I'll include the Timberwolves on the list. And then third one. See, I think that to start, go over some of the potential ones that I could possibly put here. Um, I think that heat culture is a very cool gesture because we all know the heat culture is real. That's how they got really far in the playoffs last year. However, I do not necessarily like the way they made the culture stand out so much more than Heat. Like, I do know that it's the emphasis, but I feel like the Heat text should have been like a little bit larger, maybe. Um, but overall, though, black jerseys, Heat do pretty well. Um, the Milwaukee jersey, I do like their color of usage of blue the last few years, but I feel like this is the worst one of the three they've had so far. Um, the Knicks jersey is practically kind of similar to like what the Jazz did in a way, trying to bring back a classic by doing something very similar but slightly different. That's cool. Um, the Orlando jersey also, they bring back their old font, which is pretty cool. But I don't necessarily like that color though. It almost looks like a worn out color. Like
A lot of people are
it's almost
comparing
like,
it to like a Dallas Cowboys jersey.
yeah, well, that's not a good. That's not necessarily a good comparison to have. I mean, yeah, you don't want to have comparison to that team. But yeah, it does look similar now that you say it. I didn't really think much, but it does look kind of similar to a Cowboys jersey. So I don't like that color scheme. But if they could have just done the traditional blue like they wear now and before, I think this would be a solid one. But because of the worn out color, I don't like it that as much as I could have been. But at the end of the day, if I were to pick one to be number three on this list, kind of hard, but I think that Rip City jerseys are usually pretty cool. Um, I think they've had better Rip City jerseys in the past, but the red text on black is not bad. Now, obviously, it is kind of like a Heat scheme, kind of like a Heat jersey ish, if you're talking about like the color scheme, but obviously the font is completely different. Um, so that being said, I think that that jersey is overall pretty cool. So I'll just say the Trailblazers Rip City jerseys number three. Now, on to the worst jerseys from this list. Now, definitely not as bad as the first one image, but there's still some jerseys here that are not very good. And I think I'm gonna start out with the Pelicans jersey. Um, First off, I do not like the way they do the NOLA text. It's practically just the same as the collar, where it's a white outline and the text has practically no special color. It's just the same color as the black or the grayish black in the background. Don't like it. Also the very light green for the the number, not great in my opinion. Now the font for the number is I can see that one being like a celebratory Mardi Gras tribute, so that one's not that bad. But overall, this jersey it was not done very well, so I have to include the Pelicans there. Secondly, not a huge fan of the Sixers jersey. Now, Sitter of Brotherly Love is not a bad slogan because that's literally their nickname for Philadelphia. So the gesture there was not a bad try. However, the way they put the text was not very good because, like, I don't like it. City of is crammed in together so tiny. And then love, same thing, like same size, but like so small. And then brotherly is a completely different font, which I actually think that font isn't bad. But I don't like the ratio. Like brotherly is such a big font and then city of and love is so small. I don't think that's a good blend at all. The number is interesting to say the least. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. Now the color of the jersey isn't horrible to me, but overall I think that the text and font usage is what did not pretty much makes this jersey on the list. So not a fan of it. And the last jersey I'm gonna include, I think I have to include the Raptors jersey. Now, like overall, the design of this jersey isn't bad in my opinion. Like the gray lines going through the middle and the like sharp edge on the black collar on the side, not horrible to me. But what makes it like bad is the color. Like what even is this supposed to be? Like some worn out gold color?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, so not a huge fan. And in the past, we have seen a few of these type of golds. Like the Washington Wizards wore a gold jersey in the 2000s when they had Gilbert Arenas. And the Kings also had one, the cream jerseys, which I know a lot of people hated. And ESPN even ranked it as the worst jersey ever, which is pretty funny. Um, but they're definitely debatable for that case. But these jerseys, definitely not good either. So yeah, I have to include the Raptors on the list for worst. Memo, what are your thoughts on this page of the city jerseys?
Okay, first of all, I feel like, uh, actually, I don't. Okay, first, I forgot to mention which jerseys we're talking about in this bunch. So let me go over that for the audio listeners. So the people watching on YouTube can see them, but if you're listening on Spotify or any other podcast platform, you probably don't know which jerseys we're talking about. So we're talking about the Heat, Bucks, Timberwolves, Pelicans, Knicks, OKC Thunder, Magic, Philly, Suns, Blazers, Kings, Spurs, Raptors, Jazz, Wizards. Now, I have a few similarities with you, but also a lot of disagreements with you. Let me start off with the positives, though. I 100% agree that the Utah Jazz has an incredible jersey this year. I think they have the best jersey this year, and I think for the last few
I
years they've been killing it with their city jerseys. I like the old school mountains, the purple jerseys, but they kind of like modernize it at the same time. So that's definitely my favorite for this year. Um, for another one of my favorites, I will say the Suns, El Valley. They're doing a more Spanish route with this jersey. I heard that the side of the jersey is inspired by like lowrider cars. So I think that's pretty cool. So I think that will be one of my favorites as well. And the third option, I'm having trouble figuring that out. I kind of like Milwaukee. I'm surprised you didn't like the Pelicans one. I actually kind of do like that one. I like the green and the black together. It's giving like voodoo vibes, I think. Um, the Knicks is alright, I guess. But I think for the third one, I will go with the Spurs. It's the with the font and the color scheme. It kind of gives me like 70s vibes. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw someone in the 70s show wear a Spurs jersey that looked like this. So those would be my three favorites. My three least favorites. One of them is one of your favorites. It's the he culture one. I hate this one. I think it's so bad. The culture is way too big. You can barely see which team it's for. The number is randomly on the side, just vibing there. It looks like another practice jersey. Um, I don't like it at all. Um, I think the Wizards has one of the worst jerseys. I hate the colors all over this thing. I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't know what it's supposed to be or represent. The reddish color on the top is ugly. The font they use is like mythical looking. Like what is going on here?
you know, you know what I thought of when I first saw this jersey? I thought that it looked kind of like a Disneyland like jersey,
I can see
which
it. I can see
shouldn't
it.
sounds like it shouldn't, which sounds like it shouldn't be bad. The color usage is not great,
It's
and
so bad. It looks
that's
like
why.
throw up.
Yeah. So yeah, not a good jersey.
You could barely read the bottom text in District of Columbia. The random diagonal red line is so out of place. It's a horrendous jersey. I'm surprised he didn't pick this one. But I'm not surprised with the City of Brotherly Love pick. I think that would be my third one. It's pretty bad looking. I think you got a spot on. The tiny fonts that are on the side for City of Love is weirdly placed. The I feel like the number is weirdly placed as well. There's like a lot of open space that uh yeah, it's a trash jersey like most of these jerseys are. So those are my three favorites and least favorites. Any closing thoughts on the jerseys?
Yeah, not too much. The one thing I did want to make clear, just really quick, in regards to the Heat jersey, I wouldn't necessarily say that it was one of my favorite jerseys. It was more so like I thought the gesture of using Heat culture was cool, and the color scheme is okay, but yeah, the font usage not great. So I think that your take is reasonable at the end.
All right, cool, cool. That's fair. That's definitely fair.
Hmm.
All right, last thing that we should try to speed through it as much as we can because this podcast is already an hour and 50 minutes. It's almost 2 hours. Um,
Yeah, I did not realize.
yeah, the time went by fast. It really did. But let's go over
Did.
our uh, uh, Eastern and Western standing predictions for this upcoming season. Of course, if you want to elaborate your points, we will elaborate. We'll take as much time as we need, but let's not waste any time either. So we're gonna start off with teams that we're gonna start off in the Eastern Conference and go over the teams that won't make the playoffs. Then after that, the play-in teams, and then after that, the teams that will most likely make the playoffs, in our opinion. So let's go with the East, and I'll go first, talking about the teams I feel like are not gonna make the playoffs. Which, keep in mind, I made these lists before the season started, and I already regret some of my choices, but I'm gonna stick with what I wrote. So in the 15th seed, I got the Pistons. 14th, I got the Wizards. 13 Hornets. 12 Raptors, and 11 Nets. Uh, I could see the Pistons jumping the Wizards probably if Cade Cunningham will truly like jump to an all-star level. I feel like the Wizards could lower as well just because of how goofy their team is constructed. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Nets make the play in. They have a lot of good pieces, but if Mikal Bridges is your number one option, I don't know how far your team could truly go. So I that's why they're just outside of the play in. But honestly, with how bad the Bulls have been playing, I could see them like switching from
Yeah.
where I have them placed at the moment. But you could name your uh, teams that will not make the playoffs or play in.
All right. So a lot of mine are pretty similar to yours. Um, I had Pistons finishing at the bottom, number 15. Had the Wizards finishing. I had the Wizards finishing second worst at 14, and then I had the Hornets finishing 13, the Raptors finishing 12, and I had the Magic finishing 11. Um, and similar to you, mo most of these picks I kind of based off of before seeing some of these teams play like their first two games, or also like what I think will happen in the long run, because like two games doesn't necessarily reflect how things would go at the end. But I can totally see some like drastic changes here. Like maybe Orlando will be better than where they are right now, and possibly like a play-in team.
That's probably my
And
biggest disagreement with you. I feel like the Magic will make the play in, but I'm glad you know that like they have a possibility of making the play in.
yeah, and then I do think that there is a chance the Pistons could be better also, as you say, if they're able to like Cade Cunningham keeps it going and the young guys can pile some wins together. But overall, I think our lists are pretty similar aside from the Magic one.
Yeah, let's move on to the play in then. I got Magic in 10th seed, barely making in the play-in. I got Bulls in ninth seed, which at the moment I regret. The Pacers in 8th seed. I think they're going to be pretty good this year. And then the Heat in 7th seed, which I I had a very hard time placing the Heat. I don't know how good or bad they're going to be. So I kind of put them uh, somewhat in like the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think that my list is kind of similar to yours again. Um, I had the Nets at 10. I had the Pacers at 9. I had the Bulls at 8, which obviously doesn't look good right now, but we'll see. And I had the Heat at 7, which was also difficult, as you mentioned, because as we've seen recently, a lot of the times the Heat just aren't really that good of a regular season team, but they are a lot better in the playoffs. Um, I am expecting them to take a step back for sure.
Same.
Once once playoff times comes though, I do expect them to like at least make some noise. But I don't know if they'll be able to have as magical of a run like last year, especially having to go up against the Celtics again and probably a better Bucks team because last year they did beat Milwaukee in the first round, but we don't really know what happened to the Bucks there. But assuming that doesn't happen again, like the Bucks should be a much tougher challenge for them this year. So it's gonna be a lot harder for them to compete against that team this year. And same for Boston. They did beat Boston last year, just barely hanging on to that 3-0 lead at the end, which many people thought they were going to choke after going back to Boston game 7. Fortunately, they didn't. But it's going to be harder against that team this year because the Celtics also did get better. So we'll see. We'll see about Miami. They should still be competitive, but regular season, I think they're going to be underperformers.
Yeah, the Heat are tricky to place. I could see them making them in the playoffs and replacing my sixth seed. I can for sure see that happen, especially how my sixth seed is doing right now. But I could also see them lowering down, and maybe the Pacers surpassing them, making the playoffs as well. But let's go into the playoffs now. In the sixth seed, I have the Hawks, fifth Knicks, fourth 76ers, third Cavaliers, second Celtics, and then first Bucks. Bucks and Celtics could be switched, but I think ultimately Bucks will be the first seed. Hawks, I could definitely see them not even making the playoffs, but uh, I could also definitely see them being in the play-in. Yeah, but if Quinn Snyder can turn this team around, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the sixth seed. But yeah, part of me wants to replace the Hawks with the Pacers. I have Pacers at eighth, Hawks in sixth. But I'm keeping how it is. So far, the Knicks has had a rough start, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're fifth. I have 76ers in fourth. I think they're still gonna be good, but not as good as last year. So that's why I think Cavaliers will surpass them and be the third seed. So which teams are in your playoff locks for the Eastern Conference?
Starting at number 6, I have the New York Knicks at number 6. I think that they could possibly be higher, but at the moment, not looking super great the first 2 games, so I'm just gonna keep them here for now. Number 5, I had Atlanta Hawks there. Another team that's been looking disappointing so far, but it's too early in the season. I think they can turn their season around. Hopefully, they turn their season around. Now, I think that they could easily drop lower than this, but they could also be capable of 5. So I'm just going to roll as my original prediction and keep the Hawks at 5. Number 4, I have the 76ers. Um, I agree with you. I think they're going to take a slight step back this year. Um, Obviously, the James Harden situation does not help. Um, I think that they're still going to be good in the regular season and win a good amount of games. But come playoff times, like it's inevitable. They always choke every year, and not really expecting any different. Um, the Cavs, I think they're going to be the third seed. Um, they were pretty good last year, though they weren't good enough, unfortunately. And in turn, they got upset by the Knicks. That was disappointing, especially being in 5 games. Um, but I think the Cavs will probably be about the same level as last year, but jump 1 seed. Then top two, I had a very hard time deciding between these two teams because I think it could easily go either way. But I put Boston number two, and I put Milwaukee number one. Um, I'm not 100% guaranteed because I think that it's possible Boston will be one and Milwaukee will be two. I'm just gonna go with my gut and say Bucks will be one, just because like I think that their star power on paper at least could put them over the top. And another thing is like aside from just Damian Lillard, the rest of the Bucks team was pretty much like similar to last year. So I think they have more continuity than Boston. So that could potentially help them too. But these two are very interchangeable. I'm just gonna roll with my gut and say um, Milwaukee 1, Boston 2.
All right. We could move on to the Western Conference, and starting with the teams that are most likely not going to make the playoffs. So I'll start with the 15th seed Rockets, 14th seed Trailblazers, 13th seed Spurs, 12 Mavs, 11 Jazz. I could definitely see either the Jazz or Mavs making the play in. The Jazz were close to making the play in last year. They still have Lauren Markkinen. They added John Collins. Um, Jordan Clarkson is a bucket, so I can see them making the play in, especially since I already regret having my 10th seed in there. I feel like now I should lower them into one of the teams that will not make the play in. But I'll talk about that a little later. The Mavs I could also see making the play in because Luka always finds a way to make the playoffs, carrying his team. So I'm sure with Kyrie he could help. He could carry the Mavs into at least the play in. Spurs, I think because of Wemby, they're gonna do better than Trailblazers and Rockets. Rockets, I think they're gonna be a mess this year. They have their young team from last year that are wild and uh, just like embarrassing in general, except for like a few. Adding Fred Van Vliet, I don't think pushes the needle that much. I think he will be decent over there, but I don't think he's gonna be that good. And they added Dylan Brooks, so I think that's enough reason to put them at last. And Trailblazers, they have some good, uh, they have some good pieces, so I think that's why they'll be slightly better than the Rockets. But what are some of the Western teams you have that are not gonna make the playoffs?
Yeah. I had a little bit of a hard time at the bottom, but I put Portland at the bottom. I put Portland 15, and then I put Rockets 14. I put the Spurs at 13. I put the Jazz at 12, and I put the Pelicans at 11. That one was kind of challenging, not gonna lie. Because I think the Pelicans can easily be a lot better.
I think at the moment the Pelicans are undefeated. Of course, just 2 games, but uh, they're currently on pace to making the playoffs, uh, and not like the 11th seed. Were you guys
Right,
say something?
right. But yeah, but I was gonna say, the one question about Pelicans is their health.
Uh-huh. I agree.
Obviously, it starts with Zion Williams. Zion is always injured, and the question is really, it's not as much a matter of if, but when will he get injured again? And I hate to think of it like that because I'm rooting for him to stay healthy and do good. But like history repeating itself, it just seems inevitable that it's gonna happen again. And obviously there's certain other players that are like that too, but that's one of the biggest question marks for this team, Zion's health. And another thing, I know you mentioned was like right now the Pelicans are playing really good, and that brings me up another point. Huh. Remember last season when the Pelicans were the 1 seed up until January,
You're
and
100%
then
right.
boom. Yeah, and then boom, injuries hit. And they somehow dropped so much. They barely made the play-in tournament. I think they were the last team, like 10th seed. Yeah. And then they didn't even make the playoffs, which was very disappointing to say the least. I think they should be better than that this year, but who knows? We'll see what happens. At the end of the day, I think Zion and the health of the other players, especially their core like Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, and others, are going to be key factors to their success. If they can be healthy, I think they will be good and they'll probably make the playoffs. But if not, I see them being on the edge of a play-in or missing the play-in as I predicted here, even though I am not 100% confident that they will miss it necessarily, and I don't want them to miss it. I'll just put them there for now.
Yeah. I definitely have doubts on the Pelicans, and especially with the team's health in general. Mostly Zion, but there's some injured players already, and we know that Ingram could be injury prone as well. I think Jose Alvarado is injured as well, and he's a very important part of their
Oh
team.
yeah.
But uh, I wasn't. I did not. I put them in the play-ins. I'll go over my play-ins right now. I think they will be. So far, they're good. It's been 2 games, but so far they are good, and I'm sure that if it could be possible that the Pelicans embarrass the both of us and make it in like the top 4 seeds in the West, but they could also make the playoffs. It's very unpredictable. We're just hoping for the best for them, of course, though, health wise.
Yeah.
But let me go on with my play-in teams. I got the Grizzlies at 10, Pelicans at 9, Timberwolves at 8, and Clippers at 7. Uh, I think I Grizzlies. I probably regret putting them in 10th. They probably should be lower, behind the Jazz and Mavericks. I was kind of trying to give them the benefit of the doubt because John Morant will be back eventually, and when he is playing with with the team, they are like a top 3 team in the West. Of course, they have other uh, players out, so we'll see what will happen. But part of me wants to put them in the category where they're not going to make the playoffs at all. But I'm being nice and putting them in the play-in. Pelicans, as I just discussed, they could either be the first seed or the 15th seed. It's really unpredictable. It's all based off their health. Timberwolves, they're always like a decent team. They get their wins. Anthony Edwards is really good. But the two centers, Cat and Gobert, together has not been a good fit. And because of that, I don't think they could be a crazy good team. Clippers is another team hard to like predict how good they're gonna be because they're a team that is constantly injured or doing time management. So I have them in 7th. Wouldn't be surprised if they're even better. Uh, but I think currently they're 1-1. They're They just had a pretty disappointing loss. Kawhi went for the game-winning three, did not go in. Westbrook caught the rebound, shot it immediately because he didn't have any more time to like pass it or dribble or anything. He shot it immediately, airballed it, and Kawhi literally collapsed to his knees as Russ shot that shot and airballed it. So right now the Clippers.
I was gonna say he knew he was gonna miss.
Yeah,
Damn.
yeah, it was a sad sight to see. But yeah, the Clippers.
Yeah.
I'm putting them in the play at seventh, close to the playoffs, but uh, they're unpredictable. I don't know what their season's gonna be like. So, what are the four teams that will probably make the play-ins in your opinion?
So for the four teams I had in the play-in tournament, at number 10, I had the Timberwolves. At number 9, I had the Grizzlies. At number 8, I had the Mavericks. And at number 7, I had the Warriors. Now, to start with Minnesota, I think they could for sure be higher, but those teams above them, I think like for the most part have more experience. So maybe that's where they drop a little bit in the standings, but they could be better. So I'll say for sure I wouldn't be shocked if they're higher than that, or maybe even like before the play in. We'll see. Though not likely. So Memphis number 9, we'll see. Right now, obviously they don't look very good, but they'll probably be back, or they'll probably be better when Ja is back. Not sure how much better they'll be, but I wouldn't be shocked if they made the playoffs or like play in, shall I say. I would say probably play in would be more realistic, but maybe like lower play in seed. Number 8, I put the Mavs at 8. Now, I don't know exactly how that team is going to go. I think that they'll be in the conversation for playoffs. Last season, ironically, they were better before the trade deadline, before they traded for Kyrie Irving. They were as high as like the fourth seed, I think, for a like, and then boom, they dropped massively, and that was sad because like I love Luca, he's really fun to watch,
Yeah.
but yeah, but that team dropped massively. So yeah, hopefully they'll be better, but we'll see. And then 7, the Warriors. As mentioned earlier, I think this team is going to be very inconsistent and they're going to have a lot of ups and downs. So, probably play-in tournament is, as mentioned earlier, I think is the ceiling for them. So I just put them here at 7. I think that they'll for sure have a chance to make the playoffs, but they will be a low seed if even if they do make it.
All right. Interesting. Interesting. I'm surprised you didn't flame me because you had Mavs making the play in at the eighth seed, while I said they weren't gonna make the playoffs or play in at all, and put them in the 12th
Yeah.
seed.
I mean, I was definitely shocked, but like because it seems like a lot of people don't have too much faith in that team.
Yeah. The Warriors saying the Warriors ceiling is the play in is kind of a bold statement to make. I was nice enough to put them in the sixth seed. Let me go through my playoff locks. So Warriors sixth, Thunder fifth, Kings fourth, Suns third, Lakers second, Nuggets first. I do agree with you. The Warriors are gonna drop off tremendously, and I kind of hope that is what's gonna happen. But they did
Yeah.
win the championship a couple years ago. They still got Stephen Curry to carry them. Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins are gonna be key parts of their defense. And who knows? Maybe the Chris Paul experiment works somehow. Um, so I'm giving them the benefit of doubt, putting them in sixth seed. They also have some good young players with Kaminga and Moody. So I think 6th seed is fair. Thunder at 5th seed. I do really think they're gonna improve a lot this season. They have a very good young core, and now they have Chet, who has already proven to be a very great defensive force, and I'm sure could be a star in the league one day. The Kings, uh, offensively, I think they're gonna be amazing, but defensively, it's gonna be an issue for them, like it was last year. Last year, because of their great health, they were able to be what was it, 2nd or 3rd seed? 3rd seed, I think. They
I'm pretty sure third, yeah.
3rd seed. I think they'll drop off a little bit just because a lot of the teams are in the West improved. But yeah, Kings. I wouldn't be surprised if they're really good this year, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they drop off tremendously. So I'll be nice and put them in 4th.
Same.
Um, in 3rd, I have the Suns. Although the the offense is gonna be insane this year, um, I don't think the defense is gonna be up there, especially if Kevin Durant is your best defender. Which he's a really good defender now, but you don't want him to be your best defender. Um, I'm sure they're gonna have injury concerns with Kevin Durant. Right now, Bradley Beal is out, and the season just started. Devin Booker was in the last game against the Lakers, so there's a lot of concerns for this team. How well they're gonna mesh all together. How are KD, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker gonna play together? Even though there's only one ball in the court, how are they all gonna get their touches? There's a lot of questions, so I'll put them in 3rd. They have the talent to be 1st, but because of those concerns, I put them in 3rd. Lakers, I think they improved their roster a lot uh, during the offseason and during last trade deadline. Obviously, that's what helped them get into the playoffs and actually make a very impressive run in the playoffs. Only losing, or not only losing, losing to the championship, the Nuggets, who ended up winning the championship. What can I talk there? But yeah, the Lakers were, after the trade deadline, they were very impressive, having one of the best records in the league after the trade deadline. Of course, they had that horrible start, but things are looking good for the Lakers. They have key pieces. Hopefully, they can just figure out all the issues throughout the season. So when it's playoff time and when they're hopefully in the 2nd seed, they're ready to face the Nuggets, who I have in 1st seed, which I did mention last week. I feel like they're gonna uh they didn't improve on their roster at all. They lost some key pieces with Bruce Brown and Jeff Green. I think Bruce Brown just had a really good game for the Pacers. So they're definitely gonna miss him. But the Nuggets, after seeing them play, it's hard for me to not believe that they'll be the best team in the West. They got the best player in the league, in the world, Jokic, who can you could probably average a triple double if he wants to. Jamal Murray is an all star caliber player who's gonna be doing great things for the team. They have amazing pieces like Aaron Gordon, uh, Michael Don't Pass the Rock Porter Jr., KCP. So, yeah, the Nuggets, I think, will be the number 1 seed in the West. That was a lot of talking on my end, so let me give you a turn and you could go over your playoff locks for the Western Conference.
So, starting at the 6th seed, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. 5th seed, I have the Clippers. 4th seed, I have the Kings. 3rd seed, I have the Suns. 2nd seed, I have the Lakers. And 1st, I have the Nuggets finishing number 1 in the conference. So starting with the Thunder, I think that many people would also agree with me that they believe this is the year OKC takes a step forward. I think that they're definitely gonna be a playoff lock this year. probably won't even need to go through the play-in tournament. So that's why I have them at the 6th seed. I would have them higher, but I think that 6 is fair for a young team like that. The Clippers, um, I agree with you that they could easily be higher as well, but due to them always being unhealthy, it's kind of hard to trust them to be too high. So I'm just gonna put them at 5 for now. And then our top four is exactly the same. I have the Kings at 4. I think they're gonna take at least a slight step back from last year. And also, as you mentioned, I wouldn't be shocked if they took a big step back forward. Like, for example, I think they should at least still make the playoffs. But if they didn't, I wouldn't say I would be that shocked. I mean, last year could have been a fluke. We'll see. But I think that they'll still be good, but take a little step back. The Suns, I think that for sure they're gonna be better than they finished last year because now they have a pretty solid roster, especially after trading for Bradley Beal. On top of that, they got better on defense, which was their demise last playoff run, not having any defense. So the Lakers definitely got better on paper this offseason. Um, I think that definitely they will be one of the heavyweight title contenders. Um, the key to their success, I think, ultimately will be LeBron trying to keep his legs as fresh as possible come playoff time, and also AD to stay healthy, hopefully throughout the season. If so, I can definitely see the Lakers going back to where they finished last year, at least the conference finals. Um, and they should definitely be better than last season. Hopefully, figure out the situation when LeBron's on the bench because they've proven many times in the past that once LeBron is out, the team struggles as a whole. Hopefully, they can get past that this time. But at the top of the conference, I have a hard time picking anyone but the defending champion Denver Nuggets. Now, as you mentioned, they did lose some key guys like Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, and those are huge losses. However, they still clearly look really good, especially opening night against the Lakers. So I think that they're not going to take a step back. They're going to still be the 1 seed in the conference. They arguably might even be the best team in the entire league, at least record wise. We'll see. But I guess one of the factors is how much does Denver really care about getting the 1 seed? Because if they don't really care too much of being the 1 seed and they're still really confident they can win it all in the playoffs, maybe they will take a back step in the regular season and just try to finish maybe top 3 and confident they can win on the road because they were, I'm sure they're capable if they do want to do that. But barring any of those factors, I have a hard time picking anyone but Denver to finish back on top of the West. So those are my Western Conference predictions.
Yeah, that was a great point. Who knows if the Nuggets even want to be first seed? But it is hard to choose any other team besides Nuggets as first seed in the West. But yeah, those are our Western and Eastern Conference standing predictions for the season, and it'll be fun to look at that and our other predictions as the season continues. But that's it. That's everything we have to talk about for today. This was an extremely long podcast. I think, yeah, I mentioned in the first podcast how I was hoping for our podcast to be like an hour 30. We recorded for 2 hours and basically 30 minutes, which is insane. But yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe we talked for that long.
Time with my fast.
It did. It really did. But Yeah, it was a. I felt like it was a good episode. I think I did a better job this week than last week. I told you about my own complaints about how I speak and how I say a lot, and my pauses. I stutter a bit, but I felt like I did better this week.
Yeah, I think overall, it was a pretty smooth, except for my technical issues. Um, but yeah, I had a good time talking about our takes in the season. I look forward to doing more episodes going forward, and also should be fun continuing to follow the league.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, hopefully once you're back from China, won't have all these technical issues. Hopefully next week we could even see your face. We'll see if that will happen. But yeah, I think we're done here. So please, if you haven't already, check out all of our social medias. It's down in the description down below on YouTube. Uh, I have a link tree for our social medias. We have a Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We even have a Threads. We have this podcast on audio platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, any podcast platform you could think of. It's there. I figured that out last week, and it was it was pretty cool. Going to driving to my work, listening to our podcast, which it was a surreal moment for me. I thought it was really cool. But yeah, check out our social medias, check out our podcast, give us good ratings on the platforms, leave comments, like the videos, do what you want. But yeah, I think we're done here. So thank you all for watching. Any closing thoughts?
It was a fun time talking hoops. Long episode, but a lot of important content that we had to go over. We look forward to continuing this journey going forward. And as mentioned, catch us on all socials for any our full episodes, clips, and whatnot. And thank you again for giving us a listen.
Until next time. Bye bye.